What do you want from me? Let's go!
The room was spinning before Elena even finished the tea. It was the gentle sway. It was a violent, lurching tilt that made the crystal chandeliers of the Sterling estate blur into streaks of aggressive light. She gripped the edge of the high table, her knuckles turning white, trying to anchor herself to the floor. "You look pale, dear." Victoria Sterling's voice was smooth, like velvet wrapped around a jagged rock. Elena's future mother-in-law stood too close, her hand resting on Elena's shoulder with a weight that felt less like comfort and more like a restraint. "I can't find Ryan," she managed to say. Her tongue felt thick, heavy in her mouth. "He said he'd be right back. Ryan is busy with the investors. Elena, you know how important this merger is." Victoria smiled, but her eyes remained cold, calculating. She signaled a passing waiter with a sharp flick of her wrist. "Take Miss Miller to the guest suite. She needs to lie down." The tea was evidently too strong for her. "No, I just need fresh air." Elena tried to pull away, but her legs betrayed her. They felt like they were filled with lead. The waiter, man with a face as blank as a slate, took her arm. His grip was firm. "This way, ma'am." He didn't lead her toward the main staircase, where the other guests were mingling. He steered her away from the warmth, down a corridor that grew quieter and colder with every step. The plush carpet swallowed the sound of their footsteps. The air changed, smelling less like expensive perfume and more like old cedar and rain. They were in the West Wing, the part of the estate Ryan always told her to avoid. "Wait," she slurred, dragging her feet. "This is..." The waiter didn't answer. He stopped in front of a heavy oak at the end of the hall. He opened it, the hinges groaning in protest, and practically shoved her inside. Elena stumbled, her knees hitting the thick person rug with a thud. "Ryan," she called out into the darkness, the click of the lock turning behind her was the loudest sound she had ever heard. Panic flared in her chest, hot and sharp, cutting through the haze of the drug. She scrambled to her feet, swaying, and turned back to the door. She rattled the handle, locked. "Help!" she screamed, but her voice was weak, absorbed by the heavy tapestries on the walls.
What do you want from me? Let's go!
A flash of lightning tore through the sky outside, the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the room in a stark, blue-white burst. That's when she saw him. He was sitting in the corner, silhouette carved from the shadows. He watched Ryan. This man was broader, darker. He was seated in a wheelchair, his hands resting motionless on the armrest. Julian Sterling, the fallen titan, the cripple, the man the family whispered about, with a mixture of pity and disdain. He didn't move, he didn't speak, he just watched her with eyes that glinted in the dark. The drug surged again, a wave of heat that started in her stomach and clawed its way up her throat. It wasn't just heat, it was a disorienting vertigo that made the world tilt on its axis. She couldn't think, she could not breathe. She just needed safety. She needed Ryan. Her confused brain superposed Ryan's face onto the man in the shadows. She stumbled toward him. "Ryan," she whimpered, tears blurring her vision. "Please, it hurts." She fell at his feet, her hands grasping his knees. The fabric of his trousers was cool against her burning palms. She could feel the rigid metal of his leg braces beneath the cloth, hard, cold, and unyielding against her touch. Julian didn't flinch. He didn't kick her away, but he didn't help her either. He sat there like a statue, a king on a broken throne. "You're in the wrong room, Elena." His voice was a low rumble, vibrating through the darkness. It was the voice of a weak man. It was the growl of something dangerous that had been chained up for too long. "Help me," she begged. The heat becoming unbearable. She tugged at the neckline of her dress, desperate for air, so dizzy please. She heard a sharp intake, a breath from him. "Silas," Julian said into the empty air, his voice dropping an octave. A small earpiece she had noticed blinked with a faint blue light. "Lock down the wind. No one enters until I say so." Victoria made her move. Elena didn't understand what he was saying. Her head fell onto his lap, scent of him sandalwood, tobacco, and something uniquely masculine filled her senses, drowning out the cedar smell of the room. His hand hovered over her head for a second, hesitant. Then, with a sigh that sounded like resignation, his fingers brushed against her hair. His touch was electric, sending a jolt through her numb body. "Sleep," he commanded softly. The last thing she remembered was the terrifying realization that the legs beneath her cheek felt as cold and lifeless as stone, encased in their metal prison.
What do you want from me? Let's go!
The sound of a key grinding in the lock was violent enough to wake the dead. Helena gasped, shooting up from the pillows. Her head throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache, like a hammer striking inside her skull. She was in a bed, a strange bed. The sheets were gray silk, cool and slippery against her skin. She looked down. Her dress was rumpled, the strap hanging off one shoulder. "Stay down," her voice commanded from the window. She snapped her head around. Julian was there, his wheelchair facing the door. He had his back to her, his posture rigid. He wasn't wearing his jacket anymore. Before she could ask why, he whipped around, holding his black suit jacket. He threw it at her with surprising accuracy. "Cover yourself." She barely had time to clutch the jacket to her chest before the door burst open. It was just Victoria. It was a circus. Flashes of light erupted like gunfire. Pop, pop, pop. The blinding white strobes left spots in her vision. Helena screamed, pulling the jacket over her head, curling into a ball of shame. "Oh my God!" Victoria's voice was a theatrical shriek. "Elena, how could you?" She stood in the doorway, hand over her mouth, flanked by 3 men with cameras and a handful of concerned guests who looked more like vultures circling a carcass. "Get out!" Julian roared. The sound was so powerful, it physically shook the room. The photographers hesitated, lowering their cameras for a split second. Julian wheeled himself forward, placing his body between the mob and the bed. "This is my private sanctuary," he snarled, his face twisted in a mask of fury. "Get your cameras out of my face before I break them." "Julian," Victoria stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "We were just looking for Elena. Ryan was worried sick, and we found her here, in your bed." I don't remember." Elena sobbed, her voice cracking. "I felt sick. Someone brought me here." "Likely story," one of reporters muttered, snapping another picture over Julian's shoulder. "She was drunk," Victoria declared, turning to the crowd. "Look at her, disgraceful. Ryan is downstairs heartbroken, and she's up here, throwing herself at his crippled uncle." The word crippled hung in the air, heavy and cruel.
What do you want from me? Let's go!
Julian's hands gripped the wheels of his chair so hard, she thought the metal might bend. He looked at Victoria, then back at Elena. His eyes were dark, unreadable pools. For a second, she saw something flicker their calculation. "Petty." He turned back to Victoria. "She didn't throw herself at me." The room went silent. Julian looked down at his lap, his shoulders slumping in a performance of resignation that was terrifyingly convincing. "We have been seeing each other, Victoria, for months." Elena's jaw dropped. "What? No, that's not." "Quiet, Elena," Julian snapped, though his eyes warned her to shut up. She came to me because she could not stand the sight of your son anymore. She chose me. We thought we could keep it secret until after the merger, but clearly we were careless. Victoria blinked. This was part of her script. She wanted Elena to be the villain, the seductress preying on a helpless invalid, but Julian painting himself as the secret lover. It made Ryan look like a fool who couldn't keep his woman, and it made the scandal a consensual, albeit messy affair. You beast! Victoria spat, recovering quickly. You're disgusting. Stealing your nephew's fiancé. I am what this family made me, Julian said quietly. Now, get out. Security finally arrived, pushing the reporters back into the hallway. The door slammed shut, leaving them in a ringing silence. Elena stared at Julian's back. He was breathing heavily. Why? She whispered. Why did you say that? He turned his chair slowly. The vulnerability was gone. His face was a mask of stone again. Because if you were the seductress who drugged herself, Ryan would sue you for breach of contract and destroy your family. He said coldly, if we are lovers, it's just a scandal, a mess they have to clean up. To protect the stock price, I just bought you a lifeline. A lifeline. She laughed hysterically, tears streaming down her face. My life is over. Ryan will never believe me. Ryan is the one who let this happen. Julian said, get dressed. Arthur is waiting in the study. The execution begins now.
What do you want from me? Let's go!
The walk to the study felt like a funeral procession. Elena pushed Julian's wheelchair, her hands trembling on the rubber grips. Silas, Julian's looming shadow of a bodyguard, had been barred from entering the main house by Victoria. It was just them. Inside the study, the air was thick with the smell, the old leather and judgment. Arthur Sterling sat behind a desk the size of a small car, polishing a heavy wood cane with a white cloth. Her heart leaped. She let go of the wheelchair and took a step toward him. Ryan, please, you have to listen to me. I was drugged. I would never. Ryan took a step back. He looked at her as if she were something he had scraped off his shoe. Don't come near me, I sneered. You smell like him. The words were a physical blow. Elena stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Ryan, Mother told me everything. Ryan said, his voice flat. You've been sneaking around with him, behind my back. You're even cheaper than I thought. He gestured to Julian. Elena looked at Ryan, really looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't see the charming adventurer she thought she loved. She saw a coward standing behind his mother's skirt. Enough, Arthur barked. He stood up, casting the weight of the cane in his hand. You have brought shame on this house, Julian. Julian sat with his head bowed. I know, Father. You are a waste of space, Arthur said, walking around the desk, a broken man with broken morals. He raised the cane. Helena gasped. No. Thwack, the sound of the wood hitting. Julian's shoulder was sickening a dull, wet thud. Julian grunted, his body jerking forward, but his hands stayed white-knuckled on the armrest. He didn't try to block it. Arthur raised the cane for a second strike, his face purple with rage. Arthur, stop. Victoria intervened sharply, stepping between them, not in front of her. Think of the liability. Arthur lowered the cane slowly, breathing hard. He glared down at his son, satisfied with a single, brutal blow that had left Julian trembling. You're garbage, Arthur spat. Julian slowly lifted his head. His lip was bleeding where he had bitten it. His eyes were burning with a terrifying intensity. I want to marry her, Julian said. The silence in the room was absolute. Even Arthur looked stunned. What? Ryan laughed incredulously. You want my leftovers? Julian ignored him. He looked straight at Arthur. The press has the photos. If you cast her out, the story is Sterling fiancé cheats. with brother. It makes Ryan look weak. It makes the family look chaotic. Julian paused, wiping blood from his mouth. But if I marry her, the story becomes a tragic romance. The lovers who couldn't help themselves. It creates a scandal. Yes, but a romantic one. It protects the stock price. Arthur narrowed his eyes. He was a businessman first, a father second. He did the math in his head. He's right. Arthur grunted. He looked at Ryan. You're marrying the Chen girl anyway. This solves the problem of Elena. Fine. Arthur waved his hand dismissively. Take the trash. Marry her. But you're cut off from the main accounts, and I am activating the exile clause. You get nothing but your disability stipend, and you don't step foot in this house again. Deal, Julian said. He turned his chair toward Elena. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead from the pain, but his hand was steady. Pacey reached out. Elena, he said softly, get me out of here. She looked at Ryan, who was already checking his phone, bored. Then she looked at the man nursing, a bruised shoulder in the chair, the man who had just taken a beating to save her from total ruin. She took Julian's hand. It was warm. She whispered,